you have to do everything right. And so God works in strange ways, and I believe that, everything that he did in my life was for a definite reason.
And here's another shot. Look at that. Look how young you look there. And you know who you look like? You look like your son. Almost the spitting image of your son. You've got two boys. You've got Cole and, forgive me. What's the other boy's name?
Connor and Cole, yes.
Connor and Cole. And both of them were incredible star athletes at Mentor High School. And coach's kids, right? But Connor was also an incredible football player. He really could throw the ball. Took the Mentor High School football team to a state title championship game the year after Mitchell Trubisky left. And you coached him too. And now Mitchell's quarterback at with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you've had some superior athletes, whether they're in the bloodline or not, coming through that school.
We have Micah Potter is playing with the Utah Jazz. Cade McClure's with the Chicago White Sox, actually the San Francisco Giants now, and the Sacramento AAA team. We've had numerous guys that have gone, D1. Luke Chacon's playing ball right now, played for us. Chad Rogers is a pitcher for Penn State. Luke Floria, who played and was second team All-State for us, is a wideout for Kent State University. So if it's the nice thing, and we tell our players, if you start for Mentor High School, your chances of playing at the next level in some sport, not just basketball, is really, really high. We had a string, Bob, where I think from 2008 to 2014, all but one of our players, and Mike Johannick, went to pharmaceutical school. That was the only one that started for us during that 6-year span that did not play at the next level. That's Brandon Fritz at North Carolina, Mitch at North Carolina. My son Connor went to University of Minnesota. We had a number of Big Ten players. So I'm proud of our program, our staff, our players that work that hard, that they can play at the next level. And we talk even the next level after that, which those three in professional football, baseball, and basketball, again, every one of our players coming up see what the previous players and what the program has produced. And that really helps us when we talk about work ethic and summer and really making yourself the best possible athlete / person you could be.
Well, you're doing a great job with that. You've won 2 state titles, one at Girard in 93, 2015. 20 years later, you win one at Mentor High School. And one of the things I noticed about your teams and covering them, I didn't love covering your teams the first year. And I'll tell you why. Because your ball movement is so quick on offense that by the time I describe what just happened, they've already moved 2 or 3 plays down the court. And I'm as the announcer, I'm playing catch up. I've since improved, and I'm good now. But that first year, I was like, sweet Jesus, what are they doing? And some of those playoff games I covered, you were up on playoff teams 50-12 at halftime. So the speed of your team is all because of you must put them through an intensive training to keep the wind up. Your teams remind me very much back in the late 80s, Loyola Marymount University, who was coached by Don Westhead back then. They had a couple guys, the late Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball. And that team, that Loyola Marymount team, was running 3-3-3. They were winning up 146-80 in college games. The pace of your teams reminds me so much of that.
See, I'm so glad you said that, because that is our mentality and our philosophy. We never want the defense to get set where they're playing 5-on-5. If we could play a transition game and get shots in transition 100% of the time, I would be extremely happy. You have to coach. And again, you said so many important things. I'm not sure you even understood that. In practice, it is so much more important in the game, because that's when the decision-making is happening. Once we're in the game, we're not walking it up the floor and calling set plays and calling set defenses, our players on the floor are doing exactly what we, coach them in practice. So our practice has become that much more intense, that much more important. And when we talk about basketball IQ, making the right decision in that split second. And if we could do that and continue, and this year we didn't have the speed that I would like. And, we were allowed to practice last night. The state changed at May 15th. You could start. And what we did is exactly what we have done in the past and speed up the game, trap on every situation that we could, blow the ball up the floor. And again, our philosophy is never let a defense set, and offensively attack every time that we could get the basketball, and defense put as much pressure as we could on the basketball. So again, I love what you just said, because that's what I think sets our program a little bit apart from everybody else.
It's dizzying. A couple of years ago, you had the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I think the first game was against Eastlake North. Second game was against Harvey. And you put in that full court defensive press, a lot of trapping, and you guys got so many points off of turnovers that if I was Harvey or Eastlake North, I would have lost my mind, because they were defenseless. It was like 12th graders playing with toddlers. It was so ferocious.
We talk about when we're really good that we will get 2 really good runs a half, and that will probably come in a 2-minute or less span. So we're okay if the other team breaks the press, gets some cheap one, because we know eventually we're going to tire them out, or when you bring a sub in, we're going to make that really quick run, 10-0, 10-2, 18-4. And if we can make 2 of those a half and play even, then, we're in great shape. One of the stats that I really, really like, when we score more than 80 points in the last 90 sometimes, we've lost 1 game. When we score 70 some points, we're 118-2. Where we get in trouble is when teams are able, like a Centerville, like a Moeller that we played in state games that we lost in close games, that they have the really great guards, and they're able to control the tempo and the speed of the game. So we feel so much more comfortable when it's at a crazy pace, and that we're able to get everything on a break or a transition. So like I said, we've tweaked our program and our philosophy, but the main thing, pressing, running, has been instituted since day one of my coaching career.
The amount of running your team does blows my mind. There was a game, it was Harvey. I think it was the Harvey game a couple of years ago in the playoffs. Your team had won 100-32 or some crazy score. And I'm getting ready. I'm wrapping up my radio gear, and I look down, and you got those kids running line drills. They just won by 70 points. And I'm like, this guy's crazy. What is he doing to him? And I didn't understand it, but I think you'll tell me now why you do that to him.
We were in a tournament, and our starters didn't play a lot. And when you get into a good game, they're going to play, much harder, much longer. And when you get in a tournament, it's tough. You only have maybe 1 good practice, and it could, like the day before, we're not going to run a whole lot. So we wanted to get our legs in basketball shape to play a 32-minute. You go overtime, play, the extra 4. So our players at first, they thought I was absolutely crazy. And now we get in a tournament and we win a game, and they'll go, Coach, how much are we going to run? Not are we going to run, which is really, really cool. So they get it. And what was really, really interesting was somehow that hit social media, and all the comments were, wow, Coach K must be crazy. But then the second comment was, well, we don't want to play Mentor, because if they had that mentality, that's just not normal. And you can't be normal. We talk about being elite, about not being average, not being, settling in for normalcy. So I think our players absolutely love what we do. And it's fun to play in that type of atmosphere and that type of speed.
I first saw it, I thought you were punishing them for something. I was like, those poor kids. Krizancic's an animal. And I got to ask you about this. This is something that I notice every game. Now, what are you holding in your right hand, and how come it never leaves your right hand? You're always holding a cup. You never drop it. You've got a girl that'll run up behind you, fill it up again. Are you that thirsty? Is that what's going on?
No, early in my career, the first thing I had was tape. I would hold tape just for comfort measure. And one time, my very first year, I wung it, and I hit somebody, not hard, but on the other side of the court, and their younger brother, and there were five big brothers, and they walked over right behind me. And I had some buddies too, and I thought I was going to start like a world war. I learned the tape, was bad. And then I wore these little tie clips that, kind of kept your collar together. And I went through about 7 or 8 of those because I'd pull it and wing it, whatever. And then I found out probably year 3 or 4 that holding the water was that right or left hand that kept me fairly calm or calmer. And it just was, became like one of those things that I needed. And right now I feel almost naked without it on the sidelines. So it does keep me calmer. I've spilled a little bit. I've thrown the water probably twice in my career. Not a good move. But it's almost been a part of me. There's some people that said, is that water? And their coach. And, if I really want to bust them, I'll say, no, I thought you knew that. But it is water.
Yeah, well, I call this photo here Mafia Cup. You look more mafioso in that than you do. But your new name from now on when I do the broadcast is going to be K Cup.
Oh, and I loved it.
K Cup, storming the side. So you won the championship in '93 down there at Girard. That was your first championship. How much with the team before that championship happened?
That was year 13, and we had been to the regionals a couple times. We've been to the regional finals in '88, and we lost in the last minute. So I think getting there and going through and losing in the regionals really helped us in '93. So it was our fourth time, fourth time getting to the regional and the first time getting to state. And that was probably the toughest road we ever had to go through. Because in the regional finals with St. Joe's, they had won it in D1 in '91, in D2 in '92, and they had lost 4 games that year, all out of state. And they were overwhelming favorites. I mean, they were just loaded. Their players were going to UNLV. They were going to Cincinnati. They were going to DePaul. Coach Kwasniak, Babe, was going to the Army Academy. London Fletcher was on that team, had a 15-year NFL career. So they were absolutely loaded, and we won that game by 21. And then in the state semis, Kettering-Alder, Coach Petroselli's won over 800 games. They were just like a machine. And the state final was Whitehall, and Samaki Walker was player of the year in the state, had a great career at Louisville, and played 10 years in the NBA. So it wasn't an easy road. And, 6 of those 8 wins were basically in the last minute or two. And it was, people called it the Hoosiers, reenactment, because small town. That year, Bob, it was really, really, this is a fact, when the enrollments came out in October, the cutoff was like 221. If you had 221 boys, you were the smallest team in D2. And if you had 220, then you were in D3. We had 221 boys. So when we won at '93, we were the smallest school in Division II in the state of Ohio. And that's why I thought we had no chance with St. Joe's there and some of the loaded teams. But, that's what makes it so much sweeter that we beat those really quality teams and earned a state title.
Yeah, you were definitely Hickory for sure from Hoosiers.
Yes.
And that one. Then you come to Mentor, and you're in Mentor for how many years before you win that state title?
It was 20. I mean, it wasn't quick, and we had been to the region. We had been to the regionals, I believe, 7 or 8 times before we won it. So we took our line and we got there. I mean, that was a great thing. I mean, we had some great runs and we won it. That was our 6th straight year getting to the regionals, and we had lost the state in an overtime game in 2010 to Moeller. And that was with my oldest son. That was my toughest loss in my career because my son was on the floor, and we had a chance in regulation. But when you lose an overtime game at state, that's brutal.
Yeah.
But 3 years later, we lose the regionals in 2011, regional finals. 2012, we lose in the last second to Harding. And then in 2013, we had to beat in the state semis Northland, that was 28-0, number 1 in the state, number 15 in the country. So again, it wasn't an easy road there.
Yeah, I remember that Northland team. And in fact, they're a powerhouse. A lot of people don't talk about them up here. I covered a couple games for ESPN with those guys, Northland. They had one guy that won D1, maybe the NFL. I can't remember the kid's name. But Northland's a tough opponent. I think that year you had in 2013, and I just saw the entire team. You and I were together at the Menor High School Athletic Hall of Fame, where your son Connor was inducted, and my good friend Joe Miller, who's a whole other story on his own, he got inducted. And the 2013, the entire team showed up, and you had Fritz, who looks like an athlete, right? He looks like he could still suit up and play right now. And a couple other guys. But a lot of the guys, it's 10 years later, they look like average guys that you'd meet on the street. But that team, that, keep in mind, lost Mitch Trubisky that year. You were supposed to have Mitch Trubisky on that team. He left early to go to North Carolina, didn't play basketball this year. And your battle ended up winning that title against a very tough Toledo team. Not only that, you beat them by 9 points.
Yeah, Mitch started on the 22-3 team the year before. We lost in the regionals, and he was a very good basketball player. And, we talked at the beginning of June of 2012, and, he had the opportunity to go to North Carolina. Mitch actually was on the bus with us when we beat Shaker in the regional finals. And, he made a comment about that possibly one of the biggest mistakes he ever made if we won a state title. But he made the right move. And Mitch, I think, called everybody, especially my son Connor. And that was just a really special year. But Bob, we talk about mentality. We probably in 2001, we talked as a staff and as a team about playing some of the best teams in the state of Ohio. So we really loaded up our schedule. And when we start winning some of those games, we played LeBron, which was number 1 in the country in 2003. We start talking about playing some of the best teams in the country. And we get invited to the Arby's Classic, and they bring in 8 teams from the country and 8 local teams. So we had a chance of playing some of the best teams in the country. In 2013, the year we won it, we lost to Germany, which was their best team out of 100 million on the U19 and under. And they were like 6'10", 6'9", 6'8". We lost in the championship of the Arby's Classic. And about 1 month later, February 1st, we played Huntington Prep. That was preseason number 1 in the country. They were number 4 because Andrew Wiggins, the number 1 player in the country, missed a game. So we're playing Andrew Wiggins, number 1 team in the country, Huntington Prep, number 4 team in the country. And we lose. We have a chance to win it. My son Connor's throwing an inbounds pass to Brandon Fritz, and he got stripped with 4 seconds to go. We were down 60-59. But that game, in those games, playing that type of talent really helped us going in the regionals in the state and winning a state title. And we started to do that probably in the mid 2000s. I think that really escalated our program from being really, really good to the continual top 10 in the state and playing, anybody that would play us.
How do you take a team like what you have? And this is part of, we'll talk about your book coming up in a little bit here, but you take this team and it could be the most precarious of situations on the court. And almost never do I see a kid lose his cool. And he fights. What do you tell these kids to inspire them to keep their nerves on, calm. I mean, it's like a machine you're running there. You had a kid a couple of years ago, Luke Chacon. That kid was pure steel. That kid was scary. And you never saw him you didn't see anything like it. How do you do that with these kids? These are just normal kids playing like they've been doing it for 40 years.
Number one, I think our practice dictate how you play on the floor. But I think more important is if you came in our gym at Thanksgiving or Christmas, you would see a vast majority of our alum. And when you have a guy that comes in the gym that was first team All-State, that won a state title, that was Mr. Basketball, Justin Fritz, Mr. Trubisky was Mr. Football. When you have those players that understand our system and now talk to our players, go against them for maybe a few times during the holidays, that is invaluable. And I think that's really, really what kind of separates us. And when we talk about being a family, and that's so easy to say and so tough to do, but, a lot of the parents of that 2010 team and 12 team and 15 team will still come over my house afterwards. We still socialize together. And I believe in that. And I think that's your question was, super. But I think because we feel like we're a family and we're close, and we do so many things together. We go away in the summer a few times in showcases, in some team camps and that. So we do a lot together. We spend a lot of time. We build the relationships. And I think that is the key to everything right there. But if you want to talk about our culture, I love some of the things you said, because you kind of see things from the outside, but what you've said of our program is right on. You're 100% right. And I love the fact that you could see it. And that's exactly what we're trying to build and what we built.
You've built something special, that's for sure. I want to congratulate you, too. You were just inducted into the Ohio High School Coaches Basketball Hall of Fame there. Congratulations, buddy. What was that, April 29th, I think?
It was. I just think sometimes when I get an award like that, I said I've been around too long and I'm getting too old. But, great award. When you get to that point and you get those awards, you just become that much more thankful and grateful, for the relationships, for the players you've coached, for the families that you have. And I think that's the best part of it. It's definitely the program produced it, not me. I value probably more than anything the relationships. And number one, with my family, they were there. That was really, really cool. My son, Colin Connor, you had like Doug Ute, the president of the OHSAA, came up to them, a couple other people, which was nice. And they remember them playing also. And, I think that's why my sons became great young men, but really, really good athletes, because I would throw them in the van when they were 5, 6, and 7 in the summers. And you'd have all these, great young men that are playing for us that they're hanging with at that age. And they're, still in the van. And then when they're in 7th and 8th grade, they're riding the bus to away games and they're seeing absolutely everything. In 2003, it was right after the Hummer game, and they're playing on the court at 5 o'clock with LeBron in the Hummers. Now, how many kids, like age 7 and 10 are able to play with LeBron in the Hummers? And he said, here, go ahead. Here's the remote. So they just saw it firsthand. And one of the things I didn't realize as a dad is the great byproduct of watching my sons play in like 4th grade and 5th grade, the travel teams. I really got to meet their teammates and their teammates' families. So when they played for me, we had already built that relationship and we knew them, and it was just an easy transition.
Yeah. And the whole neighborhood loves your team. They see how you foster things with these kids, and it is like a family. And I really realized that at that Hall of Fame inductions that we were at. Menor has the nicest kids. Now, they weren't that way when I went to Menor High School. We were all bastards, all right? We didn't like each other. The kids at Menor High School, I'll talk to one of your current players, like Kobe Frazier-Rosano, and I'll ask him about Connor and O'Brien. He's like, oh, yeah, Connor, you're leading for him. He's doing great. He's coming along. And that's what your team does. They're rooting for football guys do the same thing. They're very complimentary of each other. And I think that's taught. That wasn't taught to me when I was a kid. We were always trying to get ahead of everybody else, where your team seems to want to be trying to work with everybody else, and they'll get what they get through that sort of process. I think it's just very nice, you kids. They're very good kids.
They are. And we had, I believe it was in 2019, 20, 21, 22, that every time that we won that district title that night, every single one of our players, not 14 out of 15, not 12, every single one, like either stayed at Chacone's his senior year, they stayed at Floria's, they stayed at Trubisky's, but they were all together that night. They weren't out. They weren't, they were celebrating with each other, and the parents were home and stayed with them instead of my house. But that's what I really love about it. What you just said is so important, because team camaraderie, loving each other, knowing what each other's going to do on a floor is absolutely huge. And that's special. I could tell you this, the best thing about our program is the kids that graduate stay friends basically for life.
Yeah.
I still have kids from the 97 team that hang out, talk to each other, are really, really good friends, a team from 2001. And that's what it is about. They come in the gym, I let them in all the time. They'll sit behind the bench. We'll talk afterwards. They'll stop at my house. That's exactly the type of program that I wanted to produce.
They are sweet kids, all of them. I mean, they're really special. Now, a couple of years ago, you had an undefeated team. You had Luke Chacon, Ian Kipp. You had Sean. He was an impish-looking center you had playing for. He's over at John Carroll, I think now.
Collins.
I love that kid, because he would get in somebody's head, and he would just walk by with this little cute elf-like smirk, and it had to drive his opponents crazy. But that team was undefeated, and you went in the playoffs, and you were just manhandling everybody. You make it down to the Final Four, and I think that was your only undefeated team that you ever had. And
correct.
You end up playing a Centerville team that was just a buzzsaw. Two big seniors. You had a guard. He had his own YouTube show, his beautiful show. And the kid could play the coach's son. You lose that game. It wasn't a great game. That team had to be devastated because they were so close. Coming home, that bus ride home from Dayton must have been terrible.
It was. If you're in our program, and again, why I think we're unique, we have goals, but number one is winning a state title every single year. And it's so tough to do, because you have Ohio's the fifth toughest state, and you're going to talk, like you did mentioned, Northland, Sullinger in 2010, the year we went to state, was number one in the country. Sullinger was the best basketball player named in the country. So that's who you're going up against in the state of Ohio.
That was the kid. I couldn't remember his name. I did an ESPN game.
And he played with the Celtics. Yes, Celtics a little bit. So those are the teams that we have to get through. But we knew that Centerville, but that game, we shoot 3 of 25 from threes. And when you get, to the Final Four in the state of Ohio, the fifth toughest state, you can't have an off night. And it was a horrendous shooting night. And I think Luke was 0 for 8, which, probably never happened. And I think they started to press a little bit. But, when they look back, we ended number one in the state of Ohio in the AP poll final, undefeated. And you lost to Centerville. They won, I think, their last 23 games. They won the state that year. They won their next 29 the next year, and were number 4 in the country. So again, it was a really, really tough game, to go. We had St. Ignatius made it down to the state in the last game of the year. We won that one 58-31. Who you match up with, the whole thing, and it was a devastating ride home. Really, really tough. But those kids were men, and that's why we did what we did. And they rebounded pretty quick. And I told them in a week or two, you're going to realize just what a great, great year you had, and what a great future you have. That is the most important thing, and learn from it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
And I tell you, the team that was probably equally as good, not undefeated, was the team you had prior that made it to the final, but COVID struck that down. You had beat Medina in the regional final, and you had two great guards, Luke Floria and Luke Chacon, and you had a couple guys that are playing baseball at Penn State, and that was a very good team. That was a team I thought was going to win it all that year. That year prior, the one that COVID struck down, it was terrible.
You're exactly right. I mean, we had beaten Shaker twice, and that's who we had to play in the regional finals. Caleb Picks had a broken finger and was out 5 weeks, and he just was back. And Luke Floria had probably the worst game of his career against Medina. And Luke's career, anytime he had an off game, that next game, he just exploded. So I thought we had a great chance. We'd won like 16 of our last 18 games. Luke Chacon had 39 and 11 in the Medina game, and I think he just got it. He understood that he should be the best point guard in the state of Ohio. And Floria, just that great mentality, great defense player. Chad Rogers, 6'5", 220,
Yeah.
D1 player. I mean, he could have played college basketball. Caleb Picks. I mean, we absolutely, I thought, had all the pieces to win a state title. And then that was so tough, just getting shut down and telling your players, we weren't sure. I kind of had the idea, and then probably in 1 week is when they shut it down officially. That was the toughest ending of any year I've ever coached.
It had to have been, because it was completely out of your control. There's nothing those kids could have said or done. They didn't do anything wrong. That was the thing. And they were literally punished by the COVID policies. And that was a great chance to win. I was going bonkers on that team. I loved watching that team. Fantastic group of kids. Now, you haven't just coached here in Menor and Girard. You've coached in New Zealand, Australia, Hawaii, Europe. You're part of Nike Elite Clinic. So my question to you is, you ever think about going to college and coaching in college? Or did you ever get an offer? First of all, has anyone ever offered you a college coaching job?
I've had a couple D2 head coaching jobs. I've had a couple assistant offers at D1. And I thought about it, and they were the time when my sons were coming up. And it was that, huge decision. Do I want to coach my sons or go to college and take that chance? And I stayed in high school, and absolutely zero regrets. I think my sons, not basketball wise, but what they got from basketball and friendships and relationships and the experience really will make their life, along with all my other players. So it wasn't, it was a nice opportunity, but it wasn't really a tough decision. The one tough decision was going to New Zealand, because the package, and my sons could have continued to play basketball in a travel type atmosphere where they're traveling, all over Europe and Australia with a travel team, because New Zealand's out there by itself. But the reason I did not take it, my son Connor was a really good football player, and they do not have high school football in New Zealand. It's rugby and soccer and that stuff.
Yeah, and they love that. I have a friend who's a comedian in New Zealand, and he's big into the rugby, man. He is big. They're crazy down there for that sport. When you were in Europe, what cities did you go to in Europe when you were out there coaching?
All the major ones. We would train in in Paris, play in Rome. We trained in Athens, and then we actually played in Budapest, in Vienna, but I've been in Prague, London, Paris, Zurich, all the major cities, which was so cool. And it was like a 2-week. Amsterdam, I've been there probably 3 times. Vienna, probably 3 times. But the Budapest, Prague, and Vienna, that one was my favorite.
Oh yeah, Prague is fantastic. I just came back from Prague, my 11th trip to Prague in January. You and I talked about it. I don't think people know how incredible that city is because, you know, it was under communist rule for 40 years after World War II. We weren't allowed to go there because they were considered the Iron Curtain. But boy, what a city, huh?
I told you I love Old Prague. I mean
Yeah,
that center. And I was there probably 2005 or six, and it was, I'd say, 12 years after communism.
yeah,
And the interesting to me, some of the people preferred communism
that's true.
because democracy, they were worse off. And I was just fascinating talking to some of the Czech people.
Yeah, that's changed a bit now. Those people that preferred communism, not to be rude or anything, are dying off.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
and the younger group, when I was there when I first went there in '97, nobody spoke English. Nobody. So I had to start learning Czech. This last trip I went, everybody speaks English. I would ask them, how did you learn English? And 9 out of 10 people told me the same thing. Netflix. They're learning English on Netflix. So they're
Wow.
seeing it, on with English, but with Czech subtitles, and they're figuring it out. It's amazing. But you know, the Euros play basketball quite a bit different. I learned this a long time ago when I lived in Los Angeles. I had a big group of Czechoslovakian friends, and we went down to the Venice beach courts, the famous beach courts, and we were playing basketball. And I'm thinking, okay, these Czechs, we're gonna smoke these guys. They don't know anything about that. They were playing basketball like soccer with the constant movement. I mean, you couldn't keep up with them. You're like, what the hell's going on here? That's how they play. There's a lot more ball movement, and it's dizzying. They play like you do here. You must have learned it from the Czechs.
You know, we were in Athens and we played. It was so hot. It was like 105 degrees, but we were in a gym and I walked outside and, you know, I need coffee in the morning. We were taking a break. We had about a 90-minute practice. So when we got there, I looked down on an outdoor court and there was like 12 to 15, looked like fourth, fifth, sixth graders. And we, you know, the players took a shower and 2 hours later, I looked down and those same kids there, it was least going on the third hour and it was all drills. It was everything. And we talked about it. And, you know, some of the really good players growing up 15, 16, 17 in those countries go and live away from home and go to school. And a basketball is almost like a class every single day. They are fundamentally so sound and, you know, the shooting, the ball handling, the basketball IQ, you know, European players are really good. I think the number one player in the country is supposedly coming from Europe, right? Or in the NBA coming from Europe right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, he's a freak. This guy's like
Yes.
7'4", can shoot three, dribble the. The league is scared of him. Actually, there's a lot of, and the Spurs got the number one pick, so he's probably got, you know, great. The Spurs. Popovich gets another one.
Yeah.
David Robinson, Tim Duncan. Hey, congratulations. Yeah, he knows how to time it. He must have looked at this kid when he was like 12 years old and thought, okay, we just got to really suck in 2023 and we can get this kid. You know, he had to plan out his sucking, his
Yeah.
tanking. Yeah.
He's only 18. Right. He's 18 now, isn't
Yeah.
he?
He's amazing. Yeah. I mean, when
Is
he
he
dunks, his nose is above the rim. I mean, he's athletic. He's, you know, you get a lot of kids that are 7 foot tall that are awkward. They haven't figured their bodies out and they're just a little uncoordinated. Not this kid. This kid's legit, man. You got
right?
Watanabe or Watanabe, something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll
Yeah, I
figure it out.
saw the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Every year I got to figure out some of the kids' names on your team. So who's the kid we got now? Olalamu. Did I say that right?
Olalami. Olalami.
Olalami.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to call him the Lami. You know, if I can't pronounce it, I just got to give him a nickname. And I do.
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, a lot of the teams that are out of our viewing area, I just make up names for them anyhow. I can't keep up with them. Johnson with the ball, he's having a great night. Parents can't hear. So now you've got a book out that I believe got to #1 on Amazon, and it's a book about life, coaching, inspiration, all that stuff, right?
It is. It's called Mental Toughness, the Game Changer. It actually is almost 300 pages. The testimonials are my favorite part, but it went to #1 on new releases and #4 on the bestsellers list. So much better than expected. But I co-wrote it with one of the moms of two of my players from '07 and '09, Kathy Lombardo. And she's an attorney, which really, really helped writing the book. When you talk about you're worried about getting quotes and pictures and, plagiarism or taking somebody, but she was absolutely phenomenal. But the book talks about, the mental part of the game. Somebody really early in my career told me that made an unbelievable impact, that the mental is to the physical as 4 is to 1, that the mental is 4 times greater than the physical. And I really believe that. We talk about belief in yourself. I tell my players every single day, no one is going to believe in you, your teammates, coaches, until you believe in yourself and what you could do. So that's a lot about the book, the mental aspect of life, of the game of basketball. I think it's for parents. I think it's for coaches. I've spoken to numerous businesses. I had a superintendent of schools that I talked to in an in-service day, and he told his staff and he told me, he said, I want to run my school system like you run your basketball program, which was an unbelievable comment for the book and for our program. So I'm very proud of the book. We have a couple offshoots of the pyramid and some jump starts, but we have a course that should be out very shortly. It's called Mental Toughness, the course, the newsletter. Some things have really blossomed from the initial book date of May 1st, 1 year ago.
Now, you've got a team there, and everyone go get that book, by the way. And while you're out, get my book too. Get his first.
I will. Yes.
So you've got a team this year that lost to Normandy in the season. And by the way, I'm not happy about that loss to Normandy. I think the refs were on the hook. And but you got a lot of guys coming back, very good players. You've got Ian Iapolo, who's 6'6". He looks to be bigger and stronger next year. Matt Bedell's a 3-year starter coming in next year. You've got Kobe Frazier-Rosano, who everyone, it seems like I've been watching him forever. He's only going to be a junior. Ryan Callow, Connor O'Brien, and you got some new guys, some guys maybe I didn't mention, but some guys coming up. You got a good team this year, and you're going to be a team to watch.
You're right. We lost one starter, one player, and we have, I think, all the pieces that we need. Right now, defensively, as a team, to put the pressure on and do what we talked about, and everybody improve in the strength area, the skill factor. I mean, the summer we're playing in a couple shootouts against some of the best teams in the country. Our schedule next year, playing in the Arby's Classic again, which they have 7 teams plus us, all other the 7 won state titles. I think we're just signing probably today to play Moeller January 21st in a showcase at Smithville, Ohio. And we play another showcase. Our league, Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights, come in this year. So I think with a strong summer, strong off season, and definitely a strong in-season schedule, we better be ready and have all the pieces and all the skill to make a run for a state title.
I think you've got a couple guys that are going to be Division I athletes. I think Ian Iapolo's already probably got some offers, right?
I think he's probably leaning toward Wright State right now at Horizon. Bedell has a couple of MAC schools looking at him, but I think he'll get offered by a couple D2s. I think Kobe definitely could play at the next level. I think Ayo Olalami definitely at his size, and if he has a great offseason, he'll be a junior. We have a number of players. I think like a Connor O'Brien could play at D3. I think he'd be a great piece. He's not going to be the star player, but he's going to be strong defensively. He's not going to make mistakes with the basketball. And again, he's got to shoot the ball better, do some things. But we've had a number of players that were our third, fourth, fifth guys on the floor that really excelled at the D3 level in college.
And you got another kid, too, that I was so impressed with last year. Ryan Callow, as a sophomore, you had him out there starting. And the first quarter of the season, maybe, he looked like a sophomore. By the end of last year, he was a tenacious defender. He didn't take nothing from nobody. He was scoring. It's like people forget when you're 15 years old and you play basketball for 6 months. That's a big portion of your life. 6 months to me, I could do that standing on my head. But you could see the growth. You actually, and it's the first time I ever realized that you're watching these kids grow so fast in just a season. And Ryan Callow was a perfect example of that. He's going to be a really great player too.
I think so. He has, at 6'4", 6'5" as a point guard. And if he becomes a really, really good shooter, he could play D1 because he has the size to defend. He has the size to see over people. He's a solid ball handler. If he stays now north to south versus a little bit east to west, but he's in the gym, all the time. He's playing AAU. His brother Jake was his twin. Jake's probably more of the steel mill mentality type player. Get on the floor and get in your face. Think Jake could play for us. But those two, I think, definitely could play at the next level. But Ryan has a chance, I believe, to be a D1 college basketball player.
You got another kid I absolutely love when you put him in, and he's lights out. I call him the diminutive one, Tanner Toot. You guys got him listed at like 5'8". I want to get a tape measure. I'm coming down because he's small, but he is aggressive. He sees the court. He hits threes like nobody's misses. Tell me about Tanner Toot. What kind of kid is this kid?
Quiet, shy, but he's a tough kid. You're right. He is. I think he will get major minutes for us. I don't know if he'll start. I think he has a chance. The type of style that we want to speed it up a little. I think he'll be really, really good. I'm not sure if you know this, but last year I got a call from the producers from Shooting Stars in the LeBron movie that's out June 2nd. So they asked me if I would be the coach in the movie, as I was the Cuyahoga Falls, which that was the initial game that the freshmen supplanted the seniors at Akron St. V's and set off LeBron's career. But Tanner's in the movie. Connor O'Brien's in the movie. Jake Ferrito's in the movie. So I bust those guys. I'm worried about them moving to Hollywood as soon as the movie comes out and, not playing here. So it's funny. But, yeah, those two are great kids. I think they are looking forward to seeing themselves.
I am too. Now, did any of you guys have lines in the movie?
They just were on the court playing. They actually gave me a speaking part, which my salary went from, I believe, $200 for the day to like $1,700 for the day, and being in the Screen Actors Guild, which I still get emails on my Krizancic and Mentor Schools, all like parts, whatever. It is absolutely hilarious.
Did you join the Screen Actors Guild, or are they just?
I was automatically, whatever I did on the contract that I signed that night, I was automatically in it. And I said, I went from signing a contract like at 7:30 in the morning to 11:15 when they called me over and it said, rip up your original contract. I thought, was I that bad? And they go, no, you had a speaking part. You now get a pay upgrade, which I thought it'd be $250, but it was pretty cool. And I don't know if they cut my part out. I hope not. But I was on the sideline.
I hope not too. That can't happen. I mean, I've had some great parts when I've been in about 100 movies in Hollywood, and I've had some great parts that no one ever saw. All I'm famous for is Bigfoot right there. That's it. That's my big claim to fame here. You're going to be in a LeBron movie. I get Bigfoot. I'm glad I was classically trained and wasted all that time. I was going to bring up the movie. That's very exciting. And I bet all the kids go together and check it out. I mean, that's going to be a fun time for them. Look, LeBron and I have a history. Sometimes we're good, sometimes we're not. But I'll go see his movie. I'll go check him out. He's mad.
Yeah, it will
Last
be.
time I saw LeBron, he was a little mad at me dating his mother. It was crazy thoughts.
That story I
Oh
want to
yeah.
hear.
Well, it
Yes.
turned out it wasn't me, and you'll know the answer. Anyhow, I'd be on the court side, and he would walk, and he would give me the meanest look every time he would see me. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why. Well, I figured it out. All right. So we talked about your book. Your team's going to be. Any players coming out of Shore Junior High or Memorial that we can look forward to next season that you think these guys are going to be good?
We have a couple, but the incoming 8th grade class, we have 3 of them up with us right now. I've watched them since they were in 2nd, 3rd grade. And I won't mention names right now, but we have 3. That class, the incoming 8th grade class, I think some of them could probably play as a freshman. They remind me of like my son Cole and Jaron Crow, that when we were like 6 foot and under, and Ed's was 6'10", and 3 first team All-State, and the 6'10s were going to Louisville and Xavier, and we beat them in the regional finals in 2010. That's the type of players I believe we have right now in that incoming 8th grade group.
That's very exciting, man. So the pipeline continues. You and he's not coaching with us anymore. Football coach Steve Trevisano have built these programs, these feeder programs from the youth leagues, very successful, because Menor, before Trevisano got there, they were okay. You know, they were just okay. Sometimes and now Menor football is like Menor basketball. You got 2 juggernauts. I know you 2 talk to each other and know each other well, and it's pretty impressive to have that kind of 2 programs at the same. And actually, baseball is notoriously pretty good too. So you guys must get together and just sit in the smoking lounge laughing. Ha 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 ha.
Now, I tell you, Steve Trevisano and myself had a great working relationship, and we had a great friendship. And that I understood was extremely important. He let me, I love watching football games, and he let me on the sidelines probably in the early 2000s. And then when my son played on the sidelines, that was the most nervous in my career, not as a person. And I think I had no control watching my son on the field. That was absolutely horrible. But it was a great run with Steve, and I believe that we did it the right way. We worked together. We built the feeder programs, and we did all the things we had to create elite programs.
Yeah, the 2 of you guys, I mean, it's amazing what you've accomplished, because if you're a Menor youth player, whether it's basketball or football, one day you're going to be playing for Coach K. One day you're going to be playing for Coach Triv. Well, not anymore. Triv's moved on. He retired. Speaking of that, how many more years you got in you? I mean, you're fit. You still got the drive.
I work out every day. I think well, you know how I am. I think I'm in absolutely great physical shape. Like I said, I work out now twice a day because it's off season. I have that obsessive compulsive type of personality. So I think this year we're going to be good. I think we're going to be good next year. I think I'll go at least 2 more years, and then I'll figure it out. The book has really given me some speaking opportunities for the course, which in it there's 3 modules, and I have 1 30-minute session during each module. So that is really keeping me busy, which I need to do. I love the travel part of it. So I have no complaints. I'll figure it out in 2 years, and then go from there. I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know. How's that?
Well, you're going to have one complaint, because it turns out that I started the show 2 minutes into the show, and I don't think my fault. I didn't hit the button, but I don't think a lot of people saw this incredible picture of you when you were young. I think we need to put it back up. That's Bob Krizancic. He looks like he's about 6'4" in that photo. He's not. He's not. How tall were you there, Bob?
Probably 5'10", 5'11". like I said, we had a coach that came in year one, and he wanted to play like the Harlem Globetrotters. And like I said, the uniforms, the music, I mean, there was a lot of talk about us in the Valley,
Yeah.
Youngstown area.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I missed the first 2 minutes of the show, but it'll be fine. Everyone got the just a long show. We're up to 54 minutes right now. And folks, speaking of Bob's book, here it is again. I want to show it to you. Mental Toughness, The Game Changer. Bob Krizancic. Probably an incredible read. I'm going to have to read it one time. I didn't even know you had a book out till yesterday, Bob. I'm sorry. You don't talk to me. You never call. I never know. And if you want another good book, go on Amazon and get my book, Attack of the Melonheads. And that got up to number 402 out of 35 million different titles. And if you're really bored, you can also go on Amazon and get my movie, Bigfoot. It's getting kind of old, but it's all shot in Menor Headlands. You'll love it. You've been to Menor Headlands? Menor Headlands is nice, isn't it, Bob?
It's one of the best. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gone to more state parks that I knew never existed. It's a fabulous area. I mean, my son Connor lives in Fort Lauderdale, and I love it down there. But I think my oldest son said, "Dad, are you ever going to move from Menor?" I said, "No, this is your home. This is my home. I love this area. More important, I love the people. I think it's a great area."
Have you been down to Menor Lagoons? That's where we're broadcasting from today, from the lagoons.
Yeah, I have a few friends down there. We actually do some of our Booster Club meetings there, right on the deck. A couple of the parents have boats down there. So it's cool.
I'm going to call you. Save July 3rd on your calendar if you're not in a tournament. Menor Harbor Yacht Club has the best fireworks show in town. There'll be 7,000 people down here. It'll be a lunatics big party on the 3rd. I'm inviting
I'm there.
you.
I'm there.
Inviting you, not you people, just Bob Krizancic. All right, Bob, listen, I really appreciate everything. I know I called you late last night to get you on, but this is exactly the type of show I want to do. Interesting conversations, people that have done something, achieved something. I couldn't ask for more than a 2-time state champion basketball coach. And I bet you could end up getting another college offer somewhere down the road. Why not? I mean,
why not? I believed, hey, you got to believe and, go after your dreams. And I know you do. So, yeah, I'm ready. I need some, I love the unique experiences in life.
You're going to get it. All right. Thanks a lot, Bob. I appreciate it. Everybody, you've been watching the Morning Smack. We do this every morning around 10 a.m. Sometimes we might have to do it a little bit later in the day. I've got some friends that are in Europe, some guests out of New Zealand, and we don't want to screw up their sleep at 2 a.m. So until tomorrow, I'll talk to you later. We are signing off.